Okay, so good morning. We're starting, actually continuing our discussion about the daily Amidah. Good morning to you, Dale. The daily Amidah, weekday Amidah. Last time, actually 2 times ago, I think we started that unit of the Amidah, and we discussed the first 3 brachot, the first 3 blessings of the Amidah. That was the first time that we discussed. We talked about this idea of shevach, of praise. This is the theme of the first 3 brachot: patriarchs, divine might, and holiness. And we said also, we talked about the kedusha that being inserted between the second and the third brachot during the repetition of the Amidah. We talked about the kedusha actually quite extensively with the 3 verses which are the skeleton of the kedusha, the one from Isaiah, the one from Ezekiel, and the one from Psalm. And then we started delving into the second, let's call it subunit of the Amidah, which starts the 13 petitions, and we spoke about the blessing of knowledge, the blessing of repentance, the blessing of forgiveness, and the blessing of redemption. And it is some sort of a subunit within that middle section of the Amidah. So we said that the middle section of the Amidah has 13 petitions, but it could be divided into a couple of divisions, whether its first half is kind of personal and then the second half is national. I would like to look at that slightly different. Let's call it for a more philosophical, theological perspective, where 1, 2, 3, 4. The first 4 are dealing with the more of the, let's call it, the spiritual, mental aspect. And then only later, which we're going to go into today, is going to be the, let's call it the physical aspect, both within the personal realm. And then we're going to go into the national one. Okay, so what I'm suggesting is that within the subdivision of subdivision, right, within the middle section of the Amidah that we have 13, half are personal, half of national. Within that half that is personal, I think we can divide it into the spiritual, let's call it, versus the physical. Okay? So why am I saying that? A quick, if we look at those blessings that we covered last time. So the first one was that, right? Knowledge. And we basically talked about that, and we said it's more of a intelligence, right? Because that's the basis. If I don't have basic intelligence, we spoke about the defining difference between humans and animals, all that kind of stuff. If I don't have that basic intelligence, there's no basis for me to continue. I'm not going to be aware of my spiritual state. I'm not going to care about that, probably. I'm not going to be able to ask for other things. So you need to have like basic intelligence in order to be even aware. Assuming that I have that intelligence, I proceed to what? To hashivenu, which is repentance. The whole concept of repentance is to be closer to God. So if I'm able to understand what is it that I need, I need to be close to God. That's what I'm asking God. I want to be close to you. Hashivenu avinu l'toratecha. Vekarvenu, we talked about lashuv, lekarev. These are all different roots, right? That talk about return, going back. Okay, so I want to be close to God. I acknowledge that I'm a human being. That means that I have intelligence, and if that's the case, that means I ask God for closeness. Once I'm close to Him, that's the next blessing where I'm asking for forgiveness, because I can't ask for forgiveness when I'm far away from you. I need to establish a connection with you in order to ask for forgiveness, right? If you need to ask for forgiveness for somebody, you don't start with that. You try to create some sort of a closeness to the person first. Right? Let's assume that you harm somebody or whatever. So you start with, hey, how are you? What's going on? Haven't been in touch for a long time. What's new with your life? Blah, 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 whatever. And then when you establish a dialogue, and a dialogue can happen only, that's a form of closeness, then you ask for forgiveness. And then after the forgiveness, after achieving forgiveness, or at least asking for forgiveness, you ask for redemption. Because that's, you can't ask for redemption without somebody forgiving you first, if you did something wrong. Okay? So it's each blessing is built on top of the previous one. And only at that point, when I ask for redemption, and we said that that redemption is more in the spiritual sense because it's connected to forgiveness. It's connected to intelligence. It's all here, right? We're going to talk about redemption on a national level also soon. So this is kind of a more personal, I would call it even quasi-spiritual redemption. Okay? Which is a nice segue to the next bracha, which is where we need to start our discussion today. Our next bracha is Refaenu. I'm on the top of 119 or 118 in the Koren Sidur. So this is the fifth petition. It's physical. Let's read the English. Heal us, Lord, and we shall be healed. Save us, and we shall be saved. For you are our praise. Bring complete recovery to all our ailments. For you, God, King, are a faithful and compassionate healer. Blessed are you, Lord, healer of the sick, his people, Israel. Okay. First of all, first observation. In Judaism, physical sickness is perceived as something that comes from God. This is why we daven to God. Yes, we can, well, it happened, or it happened because we did this and that and whatever. No, I didn't say that. Nope. Well, yes, correct. A lot of people feel that, it's a punishment. I'm not going there. I'm saying it is definitely in God's hands. From some reason, God decided something. Okay? I'm not punishment, not punishment. I behaved, I didn't behave. I deserve it, I didn't deserve it. That's not my calculation. I'm not going there. I do acknowledge that it is in God's hand. By the way, the Torah and Tanakh are full of stories of people that were physically, whatever, had a condition, whatever that is, and then through the power of prayer, or let's be more accurate, through God, they were healed, right? A famous one is Miriam. Miriam received tzarat. Moshe cries to God and says, heal her. And she's healed. I'm not getting into the why and but it's important to understand that it comes from God. Okay, there's a very famous story of Naaman. Naaman also a tzarat. He was the military. No. Naaman was the military general of Aram, I think. Not Naama, Naaman. Yeah. Naama was. Naama was indeed, according to the Midrash, at least Noah's wife, correct. Yeah, she's not mentioned in the Chumash. I mean, there is Naama, but that's not about him. That's Naama. There's a couple of generations before him. Naama, I think, like somehow in the area of Cain or Tuval Cain, like somewhere.
She Noah's wife.
I'm saying yes, according to the Midrash, yes, but I'm saying it's probably it's not the same person, but it's the same name. Anyway, we're digressing. So Naaman was sick also with Tzarat, and it was Elisha or Eliyahu? Elisha, I think. Elisha, the prophet, prays on his behalf and whatever, and he is healed. Same goes for Chizkiyahu. King Chizkiyahu, it's a very famous story that he was sick, I don't know what, and he was about to die, and because of the power of God decided to give him another 15 years. Every day we hear, correct. Okay, so that's the first thing that we need to acknowledge. Fine. It's personal. We ask for our own healing. Right? Okay. And we're saying like, okay, God, now that I took care of all the spiritual elements, I'm close to you. I ask for forgiveness. I ask for redemption. So, in psychology, there's the pyramid of needs by Maslow, Abraham Maslow. Anyone knows what I'm talking about? Abraham Maslow. It was, yeah, the pyramid of needs. It's with a psychology. I gave a class about that a long time ago. Anyway, he says the pyramid of needs. So you have like, the basic things that everybody needs: food, shelter, sleep, whatever. On top of that, there's like, the other needs, and on top of that, the other needs, etc. Okay. So in this, in that spirit, like, the Amidah is kind of like telling us about that. So first of all, it's the spiritual needs. Okay, you take care of the spiritual needs first. You achieved forgiveness, you achieved closeness to God, you know, all that, the redemption, whatever that means. Okay, now you can deal with the physical needs. So first is physical, like literally physical. The other one is going to be, the next one is going to be financial. Okay, because at the end of the day, what do we need? We need to be healthy, and we need to be able to sustain ourselves financially. Only then, when we achieve that, can we go and think about the needs of the nation. Right? Only after that, we go into the national part. Yes. Yes.
All right, so these are our own needs, and yet we're always thinking about other people.
Oh, of course. We'll get there.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. So first of all, it's in the plural, because we never approach the Amidah in the singular language. We talk without the idea is, yes, I'm talking about myself. However, I'm part of a collective. So that's number one. Number two, this bracha is this perfect example, and actually probably the most famous example for additions, personal additions that we do in the Amidah. You remember when we started discussing the Amidah, I said, if somebody feels that the blessings of the Amidah, the petitions of the Amidah are not sufficient, and they have a particular request, something, so there's a debate where to put it. Some people say in Shema Kolenu, some people say in Elohai Netzol, some people, but the initial intent, at least, was to have it inside the bracha. Inside the bracha. We kind of refrain of doing that today because we're not sure that what we're going to say is perfectly aligned with the theme of the blessing. But if we are, then we need to. If somebody is going through tremendous financial difficulties, challenges, whatever, bankruptcy, whatever you want to call it, then I'm going to say that not that they have the right, but perhaps they have the obligation to add their own words into the next bracha, Barech Aleinu, asking God for help. Same goes for this most famous example, and that's what Terry is alluding to.
Yeah.
You'll see in a second. We're asking not only on our behalf, but on behalf of everybody who's in need. And then in this particular bracha, we take it even another step. And we say, if you have someone in particular that you want to ask for healing for, then you need to insert. And then that's the kind of like in between the two lines over there on page 118. Look at what it says. The following prayer for a sick person may be said here. May it be your will, Lord, my God and God of my ancestors, that you speedily send a complete recovery from heaven, the healing of both soul and body to the patient, and you insert the name of the patient among the other afflicted of Israel. So, yes, it's my needs, but I'm not doing it in the singular language. So I'm thinking of everybody and I'm saying it in the plural, but I'm taking it even another step. If I have somebody in particular in mind, I'm going to do that as well.
Thinking larger, not so
Okay.
specific. The whole process is, plural, like heal all of us, not just heal me.
But I'm saying is that all the blessings of the Amidah are in the plural.
Right.
So it's personal, but within the context of the community. Correct.
It sounds to me that the translation
Yeah.
is better than the original. It speaks more to the human being. Oh God, King, faithful. I don't know, maybe because Hebrew is a kind of a known language to me, but when I read it in the translation, it's much more
Appealing.
feeling.
Okay. Even though it's a very accurate translation. Okay. Another thing, something to think about, when I do that, when I recite that addition, I'm performing another mitzvah. It's a mitzvah v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Love your neighbor as yourself. Okay? Because in that particular bracha, when I'm davening on my behalf, I'm also davening on the physical welfare of others at the same time. Okay. And I want to stress that I honestly believe, and it's not mine, but when we talk about this blessing, it's definite. It's not only physical; it's also spiritual, psychological, mental, etc. And the proof is from that addition, a healing of both soul and body. I didn't make it's not my words. So for me, the fact that they insert that here, it's kind of like it has to be aligned with the overall theme. That means we're talking about also mental, not only physical. Okay. I'm going to take it to another step. What call of action might this blessing represent?
Sorry.
What call to action might this blessing represent? What might it be demanding, not of God, but of me? Remember, I always go back to this idea of lehit palel in the reflexive, me. Yes, I'm asking for my healing, okay? I'm asking for a healing of somebody, okay? That's all great. But with all those blessings, I'm trying to think that can we take it another step further beyond the prayer? what this might inspire me to do, what call to action.
I was just looking, I was actually thinking this, but I noticed at the bottom.
Oh.
Um,
There's something in the bottom, okay?
yeah.
I didn't even read it.
He kind of acknowledges that you're supposed to have medical treatment and not just, pray. But like,
For sure. So that's one call to action. Take control, take charge, be responsible for your body. Don't rely on God. That's number one, call to action. But what else? Can we take it like another step?
Maybe to be an active participant in their health.
Okay, in what way? If we're not doctors, so what can we do?
Visit them,
Excellent.
give them
Excellent. Exactly. I'm asking myself, can I be more supportive? What does it require me to do? Yes, we're asking God to heal. But if I'm asking God to heal them, what can I do? I didn't go to med school, so my knowledge of how to help them physically is limited.
be cool.
Exactly. But can I do something? Can I visit them? Can I help in some way? Okay. Yes.
I'm sorry.
No.
So it's really like a very, very big deal. When I lived in Boston, I worked at this glorified Cong association, and to go visit people, like get a list, then you just
Such
say,
a big race.
whoever you wanted to, whatever. And I remember one time I went to visit somebody, I think I met her that one time, I don't remember her story. And it was a semi-private room, so there was another person in the, in the room.
Yep.
So someone started talking to me, and she's like, well, this lady's from somewhere else, I don't know. And how do you know her? How did you meet her? And they said, I don't. And they explained about this organization. And she says, oh, that's so wonderful. This is a non-Jewish woman. They don't do this.
Correct.
So, her family came on weekends and during the week. And she was just like so impressed that we do this. Somebody who, it was like a name on a piece of paper.
Yep.
And it's hard to do.
Um,
I feel it's very hard. It's awkward sometimes. Not like. No, it's very awkward.
It's awkward because you don't know who it is.
By the way, I wanna tell you that actually here in town at Cedars, they once in a while they offer that they have training. They do training for people who want to be doing that.
They should give training.
They do.
Sometimes you don't know what to say.
Exactly, and sometimes it's actually people say the wrong stuff also.
Yeah, right. A lot of times I'm
When you go to somebody's room and somebody is like obviously in pain or whatever, or in bad shape, you don't come and say, how are you doing? It's pretty obvious they're doing not well. They're not doing well. So, you need to be, there's a lot of stuff.
Is today a better day?
Correct. That's correct. But we just need, most people are not thinking that way. Yeah. Anyway,
It's a joke, like.
yeah.
In Hebrew, it sounds better, but somebody comes to visit sick friend and he doesn't know how to say the right thing. So he said, go to see him, huh? This is
Okay.
kind of saying without knowing what to say.
So you said dying.
Yeah, we are dying, huh?
And the one last point that I want to make about this blessing is, it's kind of hard, but we hear stuff like that all the time, that people like all of a sudden, like, they were not, okay. Here's a good example. We just learned this week about Biden's cancer. I don't know, maybe it was not, it seems that it was not diagnosed in time.
No,
Or maybe it was, but we didn't know about that. Really doesn't matter. How many times, forget about Biden, how many times do we, discover about something that obviously was going on? Okay, we have a a member from the shul. She just went through a major surgery. And it was because of a routine checkup that discovered that, but that stuff was going on for a while. No symptoms, no nothing. She felt totally great, and thank God it was discovered and they were able to do what they did in order to, but had this progressed even more, God knows what happened. Stuff like that we hear all the time. So it means, what does it? It means that even if we feel great, we feel healthy, thank God, there's a good chance that something is going on we're not even aware of. So what I'm saying is, you might say, why do I need to, especially like, when I remember asking that when I taught in the school. I taught tefillah in the school, and like the kids, I'm healthy. What do I need to say? Like, heal me, God. I'm healthy, especially kids, they don't get it. I said, sometimes you don't even know. Sometimes you don't even know something is going on, even though you feel great. We're asking for healing. Who knows what's going on inside? Okay? Just a thought. Which brings us to the next blessing. The next blessing is, again, in that not a spiritual world. It's for prosperity. I'm looking at the bottom of page 118. Bless this year for us, Lord our God, and all its types of produce for good. Okay, please understand, we're talking about when the main source of income for most people was agriculture, right? In the winter, we say grant dew and rain as a blessing, or in the summer, we said grant blessing on the face of the earth, and from its goodness satisfy us, blessing our year as the best of years, and blessed are you, Lord, who blesses the years. Okay. We ask God to make a living. Make a living. And this is definitely not limited to agriculture. We live today in a world where most people, at least most Jews, are not farmers, I think. Yeah. The some. Also, in Israel, you have more, but still, most Jews are not farmers today. Most people in the world are not farmers, I think. Rain. We understand the idea of rain because, especially in that culture, is essential. Without rain, you're done, finished. Okay, couple of things. We say, Barech Aleinu Shem Elokeinu et hashana hazot v'et kol minei tevata. So last word of the second line, letova, for good. Seems like kind of. No, but we're not there yet. We're not saying rain yet. It's before. I mean, it's a blessing, so of course it has to be for good. Right? So what's the story here? Why I'm asking God? I'm asking God. I can say Barech Aleinu Shem Elokeinu et hashana hazot v'et kol minei tevata.
It says Tova in everything. So
No, but like, why do we say letova? For good. Bless this year for us, O Lord, and all its type of produce. It's a blessing. If it's a blessing, it's going to be good. Why do I need good? Why do I need for good? You know why? Because prosperity is not necessarily good. Wealth, many times corrupt, creates challenges. It's not always good. I don't want to be rich. I don't want to be, sorry, let me rephrase. I don't want to be only rich. I want to be rich in a good way. Okay? Okay. Rain and dew, of course, are extremely important in agriculture society, represent prosperity. And as we said, the entire parnasah, the entire livelihood was dependent on the rain. Interestingly, if you look at the art scroll Siddur, you'll see a difference here. When we look 1, 2, 3, fourth line, you're going to see Besabeinu, not mituva, but mituvecha. Okay, so there are two versions for this. What is this? What's the basis for those? Mituva, it means from its goodness, meaning the land, the goodness of the land. Okay, satisfy us from the goodness of the land. When we say mituvecha, it's from your, with a capital Y, your, God's goodness, meaning satisfy us from your goodness. What?
That's what my sister says. I need to find.
Mituva. Okay, but if you take the art scroll, you'll see it's mituvecha. I'm like 99% sure.
I will get one.
Okay. Why? Any thoughts? I mean, to some extent, mituva, from its goodness, the land is kind of an outcome of what God's goodness, right? Okay. And so I have a theory about that. I haven't seen another satisfying explanation, so I had to come up with my own theory. Terry, you find? You working on it? Okay. Yeah. Okay, so I was right. Okay, there's a comment. What does it say?
Bounty, right, in warming, but manner lacks the holiness to nourish the soul. Therefore, we ask that God satisfy us from his bounty, not from earnings to which we're not entitled.
Okay, that's fine. But they don't talk about the difference in those two versions. No. Okay, I couldn't find a satisfied explanation, so I had to come up with my own. And I think the difference is has to do with let's call it the more the Israeli version, or like, right, and versus what has developed outside of Israel. This particular blessing is talking about the land. What is the land? It's the land of Israel. So when we are in Israel and we talk about our land and our crops and everything, so we're talking about the land itself. It makes sense to keep it, and therefore we satisfy us from its land, from the land, from the. However, when we're outside, we're in exile. Then, hey, we're not really. Most Jews did not own, by the way, properties in exile. They were not farmers in exile. Most of them they were not allowed to own land. But I'm saying that was, yeah, and I know I'm talking about, like, we're talking about 1700 years ago. Okay, this is why they had to deal with other, Anyway, so they're not talking about the land. So they need to.
They were mentioned.
They need to. Their livelihood depends directly from God. I get it, but I'm saying, like, if you were a banker, if you're in business, if you were whatever, your connection to the land was a little bit not exactly as a farmer. Okay, so I think that that's what we see now. So ArtScroll is an American publication, okay, which is Minhag Chutz La'aretz, right? Koren is an Israeli publication, so therefore it's going to be Mituva. I think this is part of the even though it has English, it's Israeli.
That they got in the intro a couple years ago. Let's see what it says in there.
Yeah, it's not everybody is some of the Israeli publications are still gonna have that, but I think that like you okay. Yeah. It's when you ask for financial prosperity outside of Israel, it's connected because you're definitely talking about your context, your setting. Okay, it's weird to ask about the success of the crops, whatever, in Eretz Israel when you live in Europe. It has no it's not gonna if there's successful, there's rain and everything in Israel, it's not gonna have any impact on your life in Russia. That's what I'm saying. They were not farmers, but definitely it's not going to impact your life, right? So your financial prosperity depends only on God and your connection with it. Okay, not the land. Okay, anyway, that's but we said, I want to go back to the previous thing when we said I want to be rich, but I want to be rich in a good way. Okay, therefore I said for goodness. And for good, which again, what's the call to action here?
Okay.
How I'm going to use my prosperity? Gonna use what I'm going to do with that? Am I going to help others? I'm going to do chesed. I'm going to support others. Okay, great. But that's the call to action. That's it's like asking for something is not enough. If you ask something and you also understand or being even for what purpose, there's a greater chance that you will be granted. Right? I'm thinking about my kids. All my examples are kids, right? So if they if one of our daughters are going to come and she said, I want $20. And I'm going to ask, why? And she says, well, because I'm saving and I want to have more money. Okay, maybe yes, maybe no. Depends on whatever. What if she comes and she says, I want $20? And I said, what for? She said, because I want to give it to tzedakah. There's a child, right? No. Or I want to buy a present for a friend that did like something really, really nice for me. Or I want to buy a present for mommy. Right? Who's got a better chance to get the $20? Well, mommy is the one that controls the money anyway. Like she gives me an allowance. So, but it's when you specify and you show that you're going to use the money in a good way, for good. And that's, I think, what we're doing here as well. And the last point, this is the second time that we're talking about the rain, right? The first time was in the second blessing. And here is slightly different. Here we're asked for rain. Over there, it's what we call hazkarat geshamim. We mention that, but we're not asking for it. But here, we're asking for it. And it has a practical ramifications. Because when do we switch from, let's call it the summer mode to the winter mode? It's in Shmini Atzeret. Shmini Atzeret, we have Tfilat Geshem and Pesach, depends on switching back and forth, right? We have Tfilat Geshem. We pray for rain on Shmini Atzeret. But do we ask for rain already? No. So we switch in the second blessing. Look, okay. You're looking at me as, okay. Look, go back to page 111. Third line, right? In the winter, we say, Mashiv Barach Morid HaGeshem, he makes the wind blow and rain fall. We say that in the winter. And in the summer, we say he causes the dew to fall. We're not asking for anything. We're just mentioning that that's what God does. When do we do the switch between winter and summer? Pesach and Shmini Atzeret. Pesach, we stop asking for rain and start asking for dew. And Shmini Atzeret is when we start asking for rain. Fine. So we do that, but we're mentioning the rain already from Shmini Atzeret, which is in Tishrei, okay? Usually around October. But do we start asking for rain like in this blessing, because we said V'ten Talmota and grant? Do we ask already? No. We wait until right.
In America, and how big it is.
It's complicated, but I'll correct.
I know the logic. The logic is they give people the it's 6 weeks to get home from Yerushalayim.
No, absolutely not. No. So Terry is right. There's a difference between the custom in Israel and the custom outside of Israel. In Israel, we wait until the 7th of the next month, so it's approximately 2 weeks until why? Because people came to Yerushalayim, they schlepped all the way from the Galil, from Lebanon, from Syria, from all those areas around. They don't travel by car, they travel on a donkey, if they're lucky. It takes time to get there. So therefore, we wait with our request for rain because it's not fun to walk in the rain. Especially roads are not paved back then. It's all mud. So we want to encourage people to come to Yerushalayim during the month of Sukkot, right? And in order to make it more appealing, we're asking God, wait with the rain a little bit until they get home and then bring the rain. Fine. Outside of Israel, we do that. That's what the Talmud calls Shishim Yom Achar Tkufa, 60 days after the Tkufa. So, believe it or not, this is based on the Gregorian, well, whatever calendar. Why?
You said 60 days.
Acharat Kufa. So the Tkufa, meaning the year is divided into 4 Tkufot, 4 seasons. And this is 60 days after the rainy season. Why? Because as I said, this blessing is not really dealing necessarily with Eretz Israel. I'm praying for rain in my location. And the people outside of Israel, at least that's what the Talmud claims, the rainy season is later. We're talking about Bavel, Babylonia. Maybe. Slightly different than in Israel, okay? So therefore, it's about a month later. And the calculation itself is very, very complicated. Never really understood how to do that. It's much easier to go on the Hebrew calendar or one of the apps and just like see what it is. But it's around the beginning of December outside of Israel. Now, that created a huge issue in modern history. Because when Jews lived in the Middle East and also in Europe, okay, summer is summer, winter is winter. What happens when Jews started coming to America?
From where?
To America. And yeah, the first I think they came to America, then they came to Australia.
Yeah.
So that became already like, you know, like in especially South America. Right?
South America before North America.
That's what I'm saying. South America. Correct. It's an issue. And Australia and like the whole southern hemisphere. Thank you. Right? Because the rainy season is opposite even. Even India. India is completely the opposite. If you're going to ask for rain in October, November, December, January in India or in South Africa, it's going to kill the agriculture. The rainy season over there is summer, is August, July, August. So what do? On one hand, you need to follow. So for many years, in the beginning, it was not a problem because Europe, North America, the whole northern hemisphere is fine. But once you cross, it becomes an issue. And there were like so many discussions about that. And there are different practices, by the way, different solutions. So originally there were like some authorities that said, no, you do it in your rainy season. And it was like, you go to South Africa in the old days, they used to, or in Australia, and they used to say the Ten Talumatal in July, August. Right? Then they said, well, it makes no sense because like our brothers and like, you know, people started traveling more and like, you know, it makes no sense. You can't do that. So they said, okay, so don't do that, but include that request in Shema Kolenu. There's a lot of variations on the theme, but it just proves that when you are davening that, you're davening in your context. You're davening for where you are, your location, for that land. And therefore, it's not that simple. So there's like a whole variety of opinions what to do with that. When you travel, if you travel somewhere, you know, to those countries, we can have a discussion about that.
So then if you're visiting another country.
Yeah, if you're visiting, it's actually not a big deal. You continue your custom here. It becomes, by the way, it becomes an issue though for people who go to Israel for a visit, and you start with the Israelis to ask within Talomatal, for example, 2 weeks after, and then what happens? You come back here, you stop or you continue. It's a whole discussion. There's a variety of opinions what to do with that, because there's a difference. If you go to South Africa for a visit, nobody is expecting you you're not really accepting the rules of the place. You're just visiting for sure. But even if you're visiting Eretz Israel, it's like there's a bond between every Jew and Eretz Israel. It's different.
You want to pray.
And you want to pray for Eretz Israel. Right? So it's a little bit different. And there's a whole variety of opinions. What do you do when you start and you go back, or if you come and I gave once a whole shiur about that. Anyway, and that basically ends that subunit. Is there anything here interesting? No, I think we covered all that stuff that Rabbi Sachs is talking about also. Yes. In this blessing, we could go into the next one, but I don't want to go to the kibbutz galuyot because we're going to be dealing with you know what? Let's do that. Whatever. Okay, so the next bracha, the top of 121, is starting this series of bunch of petitions that are on a national level. It's going to be on a national level. Okay, let's read it quickly. Sound the great shofar, 120. Sound the great shofar for our freedom. Rise high the banner to gather our exiles and gather us together from the four corners of the earth. Blessed are you, Lord, who gathers the dispersed of his people, Israel. So again, as I mentioned, only when I achieved that personal relationship with God, redemption, forgiveness, closeness, whatever, all that kind of stuff, I took care of my physical needs, I took care of my bank account. Now I can have this space. I can start thinking about what is good for the entire nation. It's not only about me, it's about everybody. And what I'm asking is to, first of all, and there's here also a big progression. There's a progression. First of all, we need to go to Eretz Yisrael. Everybody needs to get gathered from all the corners of the earth and be together in the promised land. Where this is coming from, Teka b'shofar gadol lecherutenu, like sound the great shofar. What is the source for that? It's a verse from Isaiah. Okay, Isaiah 27:13. At least that's what I wrote for myself. What?
17:13 on the bottom.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Good. I'm glad Rabbi Sachs and I are in agreement. There's a famous pasuk that says, "Bayom hahu yitaka b'shofar gadol." On that day, a great shofar will sound. We say it. Oh, by the way, it's one of the verses on shofarot in Rosh Hashanah in Musaf. Correct. That means in the times of gathering the exiles, there's going to be the sound of the great shofar. Fine. Then we say V'sa nes. What is nes? In modern Hebrew, it's miracle. But what is nes in the Torah? A flag, a banner. Okay, and here the translation takes that interpretation. San nes, it's take a banner, Okay, so it could be the miracle of gathering the exiles. And this is something, by the way, that we see in our days. It's absolutely happening in our days. In 77 years, the population of Israel was doubled already several times. Several times.
About 6 million or 7.
We're getting close to actually 9.
Rabbi Muslim had said ones that were very close to the majority being in Israel.
Correct.
Which,
according to some opinions, that is redemption already. You don't wait for everybody to be in Israel. 51% is enough to so we really live in historical times. It's the first time in 2,000 years that we're going to have very, very soon a majority of the Jewish people in Israel.
What's the population?
Jewish, about getting close to 9 million.
Ask Google.
I thought that it was 10 altogether and 8 Jews.
What I'm saying, like it's 10 with the non-Jews.
I thought that with the Jews it was about 8.
That's what I'm saying. We're about 8.
It's not only new immigrants.
What?
It's not only new immigrant, but it's natural.
Yeah. Correct. In most Western world, people like, you have a negative increase. It's like people have 1 child, maximum 2 child. In Israel, a lot of the families, 4, 5, 6, 8, 12. Not only. It's look, having a lot of kids is such a Jewish value. It's just a Jewish value that even people who are not, I know a lot of secular families that have, 4 or 5 kids. Completely secular, right? You don't see that in most of the Western world.
And I say again, is because of the army.
No.
They send the children to the army. So if they die or so, but that's what they say.
No.
They say.
No, it's a Jewish sentiment. It's a Jewish core value way before the army was invented. Absolutely not true. Absolutely not true. We don't have more kids so they can go to war. That's like,
The Arabs do when they say it.
That's what
They don't care, so they just say something.
that's not us. Okay. When we talk about the gathering of Jews from the four corners of the earth, I think that we're talking about also, I'd like to think it's not only it's not geography, it's also those who are lost spiritually. Okay, they're disconnected. Okay, the ones that are unaffiliated, unengaged, disengaged, whatever, removed. Gathering everybody, it's also in the spiritual sense. And by the way, this is our biggest problem today. The unaffiliated. This is the group that grows most. People are not engaged, you know. And by the way, I want to just, and with that, tell you, like, you know, another, like, thinking even broadly, even more broadly, exile is something also, let's call it psychological. You can be in a place and like full of people and still feel alone. So when we ask for the ingathering from the exiles, we're asked, it's not only physical, but it's also spiritual, it's also mental or psychological. We're asking for all that stuff at the same time as well. That's the way I like to think about that, at least.
The Israeli who come to America for the first time, they feel really very disconnected.
Some yes, some no. Some yes and some no. Some people found their setting, their communities and whatever, and they don't feel alone at all. I think there are no rules about that. A lot of Americans also go to Israel and might feel that they're alone.
Those are the ones that come back to.
Not necessarily, not necessarily. Some people. There was an article years ago, years and years ago, that was published in one of the magazines. I don't remember anything about that, except for the fact that they said that, like, Manhattan, like with all the millions of people there, is probably one of the place. It's one of those places where you can feel the most lonely. You know, it's really stuck in my mind, that line, something like that. That, you know, because everybody's like doing their thing and everybody's like whatever, and it's like running from one thing from the other. Everybody's stuck in their apartment or whatever. You can feel very, very alone, even if you are in a community. So again, the call to action, what can we do about that?
Should go to shul.
That's one. But for us as individuals, what can we do about that? Reach out to people. Like, you know, some people are homebound. So, like, you know, reach out. Hey, can I come and visit? Do you need dinner? Something. I'm sorry I'm nudging about that, but it's like, I really think that this entire Amidah, it's not only about thinking about, okay, God, heal me, God, give me money, God, get me closer to you, God, this, you know, gather us to Yerushalayim. I think each one of them, each of those blessings asked me, and every time that I recite that, it's 3 times a day. Every time I say those words, I need to think of a call to action. Okay, I'm not a doctor. I can't help you perhaps with a surgery, but I can pick up the phone and offer something, or even say, hey, I'm thinking about you. If somebody is homebound, I can say, like, can I stop by with dinner? Or whatever it is. That's the call to action. And I think to some extent, that's a whole different discussion. I don't want to go into that. But I think to some extent, we are a little bit in our religious life, lose that connection to the call to action. In other words, we are, with the text and the learning and the this and the that, and like, there's like kind of like sometimes almost a separation between what we learn and what we pray and how we act. If each one of us who says that those blessings every day, 3 times a day, would spend 1 second every time about what does it mean to me? What can I do today? I think we would have created a much more engaging and supportive community. And I think this is why it's so important to really analyze those texts, because I really want my tefillah. By the way, Torah learning is the same idea. I want my Torah learning and my tefillah to impact my actions. I want them to guide me, to cause me to be a better person. It's got to translate into actions. Otherwise, it's theoretical.
It's such a, so my husband always calls it, that it's like an intellectual pursuit, but it shouldn't be an intellectual pursuit.
I totally
It
agree.
should be something that you.
It is intellectual pursuit, understanding the text, but not purely. That's it. It has to, and that's what I'm saying, take it to the next step. What can I do about that? What does it mean to me now, today?
That's why they said it in plural.
We say it in plural because it obligates everybody. Correct. We say it in plural.
Azireni, Ashiveni.
Correct. But I'm saying even if it was in the singular, the question is, what do I do about that?
Apparently there is an out in lieu in the Jewish schools in